Shalom, everybody. Hi, my name is Eli Deutsch. We're going to talk today a little bit about the concept of joy and depression. Joy and depression. And the reason why I want to talk about this with you today is because this is something that is so out there, so prevalent in the world. And a lot of people have questions about this. They want to know, like, why is it that we have such issues with this today? You know, people ask, how could it be that we have so many technological advances? We have never had it better, and yet people are like depressed out of their minds, right? People are feeling like they're not alive. People are they touch their arm there and they feel, oh, I have a pulse, but they feel like totally empty inside. And the truth is, we've never had it better. So how could it be, and where does this come about, and why is it that this is the situation today? So this is what I want to talk to you guys about today. And I think we should begin by understanding what we mean by joy and what we mean by depression, because a lot of times people get confused, and we've been taught really by society around us. We've been taught a total misunderstanding and misconception of what we mean by joy, right? Like the society around us puts in the back of our mind that if only I had that blank, then I'd be happy, right? Like as if joy is a dependent. That's dependent on what I do, what I get, what comes my way will determine my level of joy, right? So if only I had that girl, then I'd be happy. If only I had that guy, then I'd be happy. If only I had that job, if only I had that 6-figure income, if only I had those looks, if only I had that figure, if only I had that life, then I'd be happy. But what happens? Imagine you get one of those things. Imagine you get something big. Imagine you win the lottery. So then, yeah, of course, you're going to have a high from that. But even the psychologist will tell you that maximum, that high will last no longer than 6 weeks. Then you come down from that high and you're in the same emotional state as you were before, just you have more money, right? And so the question then becomes, all right, so what we're seeing from this is that our level of joy has nothing to do with what we get, right? What we're going to say now is that really our level of joy has everything to do with what we give forth. That yes, we do need to get a certain amount of stuff in order to get by. We need a certain amount of food, water, companionship in order to get by, but that's survival. That's not thriving, right? Real thriving is going to have nothing to do with what you get, only to do with what you give forth. And by giving forth, I don't mean give $1 to the guy in the street. That's very nice, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is real giving of self. To the extent I clarify, right, who I really am, what I'm really here for, what my life is all about, and I make real moves in order to get there. It might not be easy, it might not be comfortable, but if everything else is healthy, depressed, I'm not going to be, because I'm going ahead and living out the inner reality of who I am into expression and into actualization. And that's really what we mean by joy. That joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are. And the truth is, what we're going to see now is that we have different levels of that. We have different levels of expression of ourselves that can come out, right? And that's the truth. The truth is that, and this is one foundational principle of really all Kabbalistic thought, right? The word Kabbalah, of course, from the Hebrew word lekabel, which means to receive, because we're receiving the deeper teachings have been received by the student from the teacher. But another idea that's often lost about Kabbalistic thought is that Kabbalah is from the Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel. Parallel, because everything in this physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality. And so, therefore, if we were discussing joy, we're going to see that we have different levels about ourselves, right? We have physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, but they're all, if we're talking about joy, it's going to all be working in this same kind of system, in this same network, right? That really joy is going to be the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are. Right? And we're going to see that this holds true on all levels of ourselves, physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. So let's start at the bottom, right? Let's start at the most base and the most easy to sense, which is the physical, right? So physically, if you wanted to, again, joy being the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are. So physically, if you're going to actualize the reality of who you are, if you're going to actualize your physical potential, so where would you do in order to do that? Where would you go in order to do that? Anybody? Okay, good. The gym, right? The gym. So if you wanted to actualize your physical potential, you're going to go to the gym, right? So when you go ahead and do that, right? So what you're doing there, if you picture somebody at the gym, is that person, does it look like they're having fun? No, right? But what they're doing is they are seeing something bigger. They are pushing themselves. They are exerting themselves in order to get past what they're comfortable with, right? And so they're going ahead and they're moving forward. They're pushing forward. And we find that a person at first, they're not having fun. But soon after, if they stick with it for not that long, a few weeks, maybe a month, all of a sudden, as long as it takes for the brain to translate the pain into gain, a person starts to be feeling a certain fullness of self, a certain expansion of self, a certain moving forward, a certain getting past their comfort zone in order to do something more, a certain growth that they're feeling, to the point that if you were to keep them from going to the gym for a number of days, they'd start to feel lacking. They'd start to be feeling like they really want to get to the gym and that they're missing something in their life. So we see already in the physical world that as you physically grow, even emotionally already you're affected. You're starting to feel a certain sense of completion, a certain sense of fullness and wholeness and growth within yourself, right? Okay, let's take this up a notch to emotionally, to psychologically, right? So, for example, the example I like to give is, imagine you have a little kid and he already at age 7, a good American kid, this kid already wants to be a Super Bowl quarterback. And so this kid, he's living his life, and he goes to Little League and all that, and he's doing very well. And sure enough, he moves up to high school, and he becomes the quarterback of his high school team. He does very well. And all along, this kid, he is dreaming about being that Super Bowl quarterback. And so he's continuing on this path. He does very well in high school. He gets brought into the NFL, right? He gets drafted first to college. He does well there. He continues on to the NFL. We catch up with him. He's a few years into his NFL career, and we catch up with him when he has finally made it to the Super Bowl. And there's a few minutes left, and his team is down by 4 points. They get the ball on the 20-yard line with at the 2-minute warning, right? And he proceeds to march his team down the field, and with time expiring, he throws a touchdown pass into the end zone over the shoulder. Crowd goes wild, amazing. They run onto the field after when he wins the game, and they put the camera in his face, and it's like, hey, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next? And of course he says, I'm going to Disney World, right? And so this guy finally made it, right? Finally made it. His entire life, he's dreaming about this moment. He makes it. It's amazing. The feeling is ecstasy, right? But from that point on, from 2 days later onward, right? When this guy's dreaming, what is he dreaming about, right? So from then on, for the rest of his life, this guy, when he's dreaming, he's reminiscing about the time when he won the Super Bowl, right? Which means that this guy's entire life, and I'm obviously giving an extreme example of someone who's an athlete who really put a vision on it, really followed through day in and day out. His entire life revolved around becoming that Super Bowl champion, becoming that Super Bowl quarterback, right? And so we have to find out that moment when he wins. That is the moment that his entire life revolves around. So really, what's going on for that person at that moment? If we can pinpoint what's going on for that person at that moment, we should be able to gain a lot of insight in terms of really what our lives are all about and how we work, right? So if you think about it, what's really going on for this person is at that moment, a person is moving from a state of inner potential to a state of outer actualization, right? Bringing together potential and actualization. Bring together, he had a certain reality and essence, a certain capability, a certain vision, and he managed to express that and actualize that. That's what's going on in the Super Bowl, right? To the point that his whole life he is dreaming and visioning, he is feeling and thinking about that moment, right? Let's give you another example. imagine you have a person who sets out on a journey to climb a mountain. And it's going to be a 4-week climb. And it's in the heat, and it's a tough day. Maybe it's the summer. Okay, and he sets out on his journey, and the guy's a week into it. He's doing okay. He's still kind of inspired, right? But then 2 weeks into it, and this guy's like halfway through, right? Like that's a tough time, right? Because of course at the beginning, you're inspired about the beginning. The end, you can already taste the end. But in the middle, that's the grueling part, right? And the guy's right in the middle there. And his buddy comes along, flies over in his brand new helicopter. He sees his friend climbing a mountain. He opens up the window, calls out to his friend, "Hey, my friend, what are you doing?" The guy's like, "What does it look like I'm doing?" "I'm climbing a mountain." He says, "What's your goal?" "Well, my goal is to get to the top of the mountain." The guy says, "Okay, if that's your goal, listen, check this out. I've got this brand new helicopter, leather interior, AC's blasting. Hop in. It looks like you got 2 weeks left to go. Hop in with me. I'll have you up there in 10 minutes. Right? So what does that mountain climber respond to his friend in the helicopter? He says, "No way," right? Because really we misunderstand. The truth is that the mountain climber misunderstands what his goal truly is. Right? He thinks his goal is to get to the mountain, but the goal isn't just to get to the top of the mountain. Right? The goal is in every step of the way. Right? And the goal is in the climb. The goal is in the journey. The goal is getting to the top by making every step along the way, by persevering, right? And so if we fast forward a couple of weeks down the road and this guy's finally getting to the top of the mountain, he's got a few steps left. He's in that climb, the last few, if it was a movie, they would zoom in now, they'd put it in slow motion, there'd be music coming on in the background, dun, 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 right? Like right at the end there, right? And he kind of climbs over there. Maybe he gets a little flag out of his backpack, he plants it in the ground, right? And we love that scene, and we focus in on that scene, right? But our favorite snapshot of the whole thing is when the guy's kind of like has one leg over the mountain and one leg kind of still in the journey of climbing up. We love that, right? Because again, what's going on for that guy in that moment? That is the moment of the feeling of just getting there, right? That's the moment when potential meets actualization, when journey meets experience, when the process meets the destination, right? And we love that feeling of just getting there, because that feeling of just getting there is, if we can break it down a little bit, it includes both the journey and the destination in one. It includes both process or potential and actualization happening at the same time. And we love that. If we could stay in that moment always, we totally would, right? Because we love that and because that's who we are, right? At our core, this is how joy works. And the bigger question that we have to ask here, if we want to be good Jews about it, is why is it that we work this way? Right? Why is it that this is what makes us tick? So before we get to that, I want to just visit a little bit the concept of depression, right? And when we talk about depression here today, I'm not talking about the medical exception to the rule, right? I'm not talking about that exception to the rule. What I'm talking about is the epidemic of depression that we're seeing happening here in the world today, right? Those questions that we asked at the beginning of this talk. Right, which is, how could it be that we never had it better and the masses are struggling with these feelings of depression? Perhaps we should say it that way, feelings of depression, right? Because it's an epidemic. And so if we want to understand what depression is and what the issue is today with the masses feeling depression, well, let's just understand that. Let's just define it first, right? If we understand that joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are, so then we should be able to understand that depression is the experience of not actualizing the reality of who you are, right? Let's do that one more time. If joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are, then depression is the experience of not actualizing the reality of who you are. It means that you're not clear on where to go, or you are clear on where to go, and you are running in the other direction, right? And when you do this over and over and over again, we're going to start to feel a certain sense of lack of fulfillment, right? And so and again, the society messes us up here, right? Society gives us a misconception about joy, right? Or they give us this line, right? I think maybe it's from the 70s or 60s, right? That goes like this, right? If it feels good, do it, right? But that comes along with an implication. If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. Right? So we grow up with that message. Whether we've heard that specific line before or not is not important. We grow up with that message. We are ingrained with that message by our media, by the movies, TV, etc. Not to mention by the feelings that we have inside too. And so we grow up with that message. If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. And so then if you're a good American or you're a good Westerner and you grow up with this ingrained in you, so what happens? What do you do when you get 20 minutes of so-called free time? What's your initial response, right? Plop down on the couch, grab your remote, right? Maybe get the chips, put that on your stomach there, right? And then, of course, you also have probably your phone at the same time. But okay, you grab the remote, you start flipping the channels, and I don't know, we settle in on, MTV, right? So think about it. How long before you feel like you want to blow your brains out, right? Probably not too long. Truth is, probably the bigger the soul, the quicker you feel that. But okay, we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But let's take this example to its logical end, to its logical extreme, right? So think about it. When are we even more comfortable than when we are plopped down in the couch, right? When you're asleep in bed, right? And when are you even more at peace than when you're asleep? When you're dead, right? So we have to understand that the culture around us is pushing us and ingraining us with this idea that the path to joy is actually to get in touch with the thing that touches the thing that touches death, right? Comfort, sleep, death. And the truth is that the Talmud already said 2,000 years ago, it's written in the Talmud that sleep is 1/60th of death. That sleep is like a flavor of death. So all we're adding here is that comfort is 1/60th of sleep, right? So you do the math there, comfort 1/360th of death, right? So if we go ahead and take this perspective, if we understand this, then we take a look back at the culture that we have in the Western world, at least, right? We start to understand. Starts to make a lot of sense why we're struggling with an epidemic of feelings of depression, right? Because over and over what we're often doing is whatever feels easiest, right? And the more we do that, the more we fall into it, right? So think about it like there's an idea of killing time, right? So how many moments in time must you kill before you start to feel like a dead man walking, right? How many moments in time must you kill before you start to feel that, like we said before, the pulse is going, but I feel totally not alive inside? Because on the outside, my body is doing alive, but on my inside, what I'm actually doing is the same thing that a dead person does, right? I'm laying there, or I'm doing what comes easiest, right? And so this is not some rant against technology, right? Technology can be a great thing if it serves us in terms of our life's mission. If it serves us to accomplish, it can be a vehicle for accomplishment. But if it's something that we only use to shut off if it's something that we only use to shut off our doing something, our progressing, our proceeding, our moving forward, so then it's going to be something that's going to ultimately sap the life out of us, right? So like great example would be, imagine you have a woman who is doing the laundry, okay? Right, so back in the day, okay, a few hundred years ago, laundry might have been a full day affair, right? You take the laundry and you bring it down to a river, and you rinse it out, you wring it out, you bring it all the way back up to wherever you're living, right? So this could be a number of hours of work, right? And hopefully if a person did that back in the day, hopefully they felt accomplished. Hopefully they felt like they're doing something good. Hopefully they were able to perceive that and put that in their minds in a way that like, okay, I'm doing what I need to do for my family, and it's productive and it's meaningful, and my family has a purpose and a goal and a vision in life, and we're living meaningful lives. And so that's what I'm doing by doing the laundry is something meaningful and awesome. And that's great, right? But nowadays, we have, instead of it being 6 hours or 7 hours to do the laundry, now we're blessed to have machines that you put it in, you push a button and take it out, put it into another machine, push another button, and you just saved a good 5 hours right there. So now the question is, what do you do with those 5 hours, right? What do you do with those 5 hours? Am I just kicking back and watching reruns of Oprah or Seinfeld or whatever you're into, right? And Oprah wouldn't be so happy about that either. She would probably tell you not to watch 5 hours of Oprah reruns. Or am I going ahead and doing something more with that time, right? Because again, the laundry is an important thing, needs to get done, bottom line. And if we view it in its proper scope, we can be living a joyful, meaningful life doing that. But if I'm just kicking back, right, and being passive for the rest of my time, or for that quote unquote extra time that I now have, so yeah, I'm going to start to feel a little bit dead inside, right? And so we're talking about here, what this means is that the path to joy again is going to be to clarify, what is my story in life? What is going on here? What's the bigger picture? What's my life all about, right? And make moves in that direction, whether it be in terms of, again, physically, to do what I need to do physically, to move forward, to do what I need to do emotionally and psychologically, and what's meaningful in life, and what's my purpose, and professionally, all of these things to be clarifying really, who am I, what's my purpose, and if you want to get bigger, what is my grander goal, what is my grander mission, and what needs to be done in that mission, so I go ahead and fill that role, right? So these are all ways, if we were really doing that, if we were really aligned with our purpose, so and following up on it, right? So then, again, it might not be easy, it might not be comfortable, but if everything else is healthy, we're going to be living in a state of joy, right? We're going to be drawing from that vision and understanding how understanding how what I'm doing right now is actually meaningful, because I have the clarity, I'm aligned with my vision, I'm aligned with my purpose, or I'm aligned with God, or I'm aligned with God's purpose, okay? But all these are all different levels in terms of how we can be joyful in a moment that seems mundane. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? So the bigger question though is, and by the way, we can just end it right here and it would make a great self-help talk, right? That you could sell a book about it, it'll be awesome. Right? That's one, but we're Jewish, so we got to ask the next question, which is a little bit deeper, which is, okay, well, hold on a second. Why is it that we work this way? Why is it that our joy or the other way, God forbid, right, is dependent on, who I really am, what I'm really here for, how much am I going ahead and living that out, right? Like, why is it that joy is the experience of actualizing the reality of who you are? Like, yes, that's a fact, that's how we define it, but why is it that we work this way? And so for this, we need to get a little bit more spiritual. We need to understand the concept of the soul for a minute, okay? And what we mean by a soul, we have to be clear. What the soul is all about is, and we can do a whole other class, and maybe next time we'll do a whole other talk on this. But for now, let's just understand that what we mean by a soul is an aspect of the infinite, an aspect of God, an aspect of the infinite, here within a finite world, yearning to go ahead and live out infiniteness and godliness and goodliness, even here in a world where God is not all that clear. Okay? Can we get that? That what we mean by a soul is an aspect of the infinite that's pushing forward to go ahead and manifest its godly inner self, its godly essence, and bring about God clarity, even in a world where God is not all that clear. Right? So that's what we're doing here as souls. And I understand that needs more explanation and needs more background, and we don't have time for all that right now. And hopefully we will do a class just on the soul. But if we understand that, then our joy starts to make, a lot of things start to make more sense, right? Like, for example, we love the underdog, right? Especially Americans, right? We love the underdog, right? We can go and watch that, right? What's the underdog? The underdog is the one who they say, listen, you got no shot, right? The underdog has fell on his face a million times before. He's got no shot. The other team, or the dragon, or the bad guy, or whatever, is just totally way more powerful, right? The other team's got too many weapons, right? They're just too good, and you're going to get run out of town. You got no chance. Just give it up. And anyway, against all odds, this guy, he just decides, you know what? He believes in himself. He sees that it's possible. He doesn't know if he'll make it, but he's going to give it his all, right? And he perseveres, and he works, and day in and day out. And physically, it looks like he's not going to make it. Psychologically and emotionally, the guy has to dig really deep, right? And this guy, he pushes forward day in and day out, and he's working, and he's plugging away, and he's practicing. And when finally, somehow, the guy manages to overcome, and he manages to be victorious. We love that story. You can redo that. You can take that story, take that model, take that skeleton, and package it in all sorts of different ways. And every year, you can make 10 movies about it, and we'll buy it up every single time, right? But why is it? Why will we continue to buy that? Because the truth is, that's the story of each of us, right? That each of us are that soul, totally infinite, totally beyond this finite world, but we're placed here in a finite world, in a finite body, right? Which has all sorts of pulls to all sorts of other directions, and it's telling you, that God stuff, who cares about that stuff, whether maybe it's real, maybe it's not, seeing is believing, right? Whatever, and it's telling you, give it up, right? Trying to pull you in all sorts of other directions, right? But inside, if we can go ahead and we can, the soul side of ourselves, or we can manifest our will to go ahead and to just follow up and follow through on our godly essence and strengthen, mind over matter, and the spiritual side of ourselves over the physical side of ourselves, use our physical sides to be a vehicle for the spiritual side, etc. Oh, wow. Then we're able to manifest a little bit of our spiritual godly self even here in a physical world, and bring about some God clarity even here in a world in which God is not all that clear. Wow. Amazing, right? And so once we understand that, we can understand this is why our joy works this way. Because again, everything works in a parallel system. We said before, Kabbalah, one of the ideas is that everything is a parallel. Everything is a parallel of a grander system. So once we understand this is where we're at spiritually, so then, okay, physically, emotionally, psychologically, this is how we're going to work, right? This is why we love the story of the American dream, right? We love that story, right? The guy comes to America with nothing but the shirt on his back, but he decides, if I'm going to work, I'm going to be able to work at it, and they're going to leave me alone, right? I don't want to get into politics now. The idea of the American dream was everyone's going to leave me alone, right? They'll get the red tape out of the way, and they'll let me, if I work, if I persevere, if I push forward, so I'll be able to overcome, right? So the guy, he opens up a store, and he really works at it. Guy finally manages to turn a profit, right? He decides, you know what, look, I did this in this town, and it worked out. Let me move over to the next town, open up another one, and I'll do it there too, right? So the guy goes ahead, he works really hard, maybe hires someone else, right? Employing people, that's good too. And boom, manages to turn a profit there. He says, hey, listen, if I can do this in these two towns, let me open up throughout the state. Guy opens up throughout the state, becomes successful, opens up throughout the country. It manages to be successful there too. He decides it's going to start opening up throughout the world. Right? And this, of course, is Coca-Cola, right? So the point is, we love this because this speaks to the inner essence of who we are as souls, right? God's American dream, right, is happening through us, right? That we're all aspects of the infinite here within a finite world, and to the extent we're able to live out a little bit of godliness and goodliness, we're able to be the vehicle for the expression of God, even here in this world in which God is not all that clear, right? And that's really our ultimate purpose, and that really, as we align ourselves with that, as we clarify that is who we really are, and we go ahead and live that out, even in those difficult times, even in those dark times, even in those places and those back alleys in which it seems like God's not there, if we can go ahead and light some of those up by living out our soul side, even there, so then we are truly acting to our highest plane, and then ultimately, to the extent we're aligned with it, we're going to be in a joyous state, right? And so, of course, this is the concept of joy. This is the concept of joy and depression, and really where we're at as a culture and society. And to the extent we're able to live forth our personal essence and expression, really on all these levels, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, we're going to be living a more joyous, more fulfilled, more expansive lives here in this world, and we're going to come to a place of joy in our lives.